Hey everyone, it is Father Ron from Rancho Cucamonga Anglican, and it is Friday, so it's time for another question and answer. If you've got a question about the Bible, Christianity, the Anglican tradition, ethics, anything like that, leave it below and we might use it for our next video. But today, our question is probably the second most common question or comment that we get on our videos, which is, why aren't you Eastern Orthodox, or please become Orthodox? And so I thought it might be helpful to answer why I am Anglican rather than Eastern Orthodox. I love the Eastern tradition. You can perhaps make out behind me some of the icons and books. Right there is the Resurrection by Ivanka Demchak, one of my favorite icons. This shelf and the one behind it is mostly popular patristics. I love reading the Eastern Fathers. I read St. John Chrysostom almost every week in preparation for my homilies. Ultimately, the reason why I'm Anglican is that I desire to affirm the Eastern patrimony, but also the Western patrimony. And I think that's maybe a good thesis overall. Within historic Eastern Orthodoxy, as well as modern Eastern Orthodoxy, there's been a general rejection of the Western patrimony. And it's something that I just can't stomach. While I love reading John Chrysostom and John of Damascus, all the Johns and the Gregorys, I also love St. Augustine. I love St. Aquinas. I love St. Anselm. And I cannot give up that patrimony. To do so is ultimately a rejection of the work that God was doing in and through those saints. And while no father on their own speaks everything perfectly, one of the things I love about St. Augustine, for example, at the end of his life, he writes his retractions. Here's the things that I know I got wrong. Beautiful image of humility. In the Eastern tradition, there's a general rejection of the Western patrimony, including things like the Filioque, which I continue to believe that the Filioque is taught by the scriptures. It's certainly been taught by church fathers. You see evidence of it in Gregory of Nyssa, Didymus the Blind, Ambrose. It's a biblical and patristic doctrine. While I would agree with the East that it should not have been added to the Nicene Creed, I would disagree with the East with their contention that it's not biblical. I believe it's deeply biblical and patristic. And last of all, it's the rejection by many within the East of the sacraments of the West. And you see this historically. Timothy Ware, later Callistos Ware, speaks about this in his book, The Orthodox Church, where he talks about from 1775 to the end of the 19th century, the patriarchs of Constantinople, Antioch, and Jerusalem rejecting Latin baptisms and rebaptizing. And you still see this kind of thing happening, this rejection of the sacraments in the West. And ultimately that's Donatism. It's a denial of Christ's work in the minister through the Spirit. And so why am I Anglican? It's because I want to receive the fullness of the Church, East and West, appreciating it and passing on the fullness of the Catholic Orthodox faith to others.